My name is Jalen Carter. I'm a senior here at Wofford College studying psychology, sociology, and anthropology, as well as having a minor in philosophy. Just a little bit about my capstone project. Its title's a little lengthy. It's called Examining How the Deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, followed by the hashtag Black Lives Matter social justice movement, and increasing conversations about police violence and race nationwide, as well as on Wofford College's campus, has impacted the mental health of African American and Black students at Wofford College. The reason I wanted to do this project, or to revolve my project around this topic, just stems from the events that happened last summer, the summer of 2020, and America's response to Breonna Taylor's murder and George Floyd's murder. George Floyd's murder was a little more graphic, only because it was recorded on video, but just seeing how it was displayed all over social media, people's responses and comments, blaming him, blaming everything, and blaming himself, anything other than holding the officers accountable for those actions, just deeply bothered me, both mentally and emotionally. And the same with Breonna Taylor, especially with them serving a no-knock warrant and breaking into her house and home and startling her and her boyfriend and ending up with her being murdered. As a Black American, it made me feel like my life really didn't matter as much as a Black man, and seeing George Floyd just made me feel as if it's just another example of how this country treats its Black citizens. And it made it really hard to watch the news. It made it really hard to want to talk about things, hear or see other people's responses. I lost a lot of friendships, or at least a few friendships, just talking about the events. It really hurt me to scroll on social media and just be triggered and see all of this death and violence and people just showing so much lack of compassion to Black people and even to Black protesters or peaceful protesters who were just trying to spread the word and get knowledge out about an event. So it made me not even want to get on social media. My favorite apps like Twitter and Instagram, it just made me not want to get on those just because of how emotionally triggering it was. And I just wanted to know, do other people or other students like me on campus have these feelings or kind of feel the same way? And so that's why I conducted my research. So the purpose of my research is just to gain a better understanding of the impact that the murders of African Americans by law enforcement, such as George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and the social justice movements following them have had on the mental health of African American or Black students at Wofford. And my studies is just a little interested also in the role that hashtag activism plays. So hashtags such as hashtag say her name, hashtag Black Lives Matter, what roles they play in social media and allowing people to, create their own narratives or just pull information under one hashtag that allows people to have access to a plethora of information as if they are there on the front lines protesting and being involved. So some questions that I had that helped frame my research were, do African American or Black college students experience racial battle fatigue? And just what role does hashtag activism play in spreading information about social movements? So racial battle fatigue is just students, or ideally mostly Black college students, who have reported physiological stress responses. So frustration, shock, anger, disappointment, resentment, anxiety, helplessness, hopelessness, and fear in response to macro-racial aggressions and micro-racial aggressions. As a theoretical idea, it's treated as a social or psychological stress response, like, again, frustration, anger, exhaustion, physical avoidance, psychological or emotional withdrawal, escapism, acceptance of racial attitudes, resistance, verbally or non-verbally, or physically fighting back, and just creating different coping strategies are associated with being an African American on historically white campuses. And these experiences are often detrimental to African American or Black college students' educational aspirations and achievement, and can also contribute to lack of stress responses later in life that contribute to lower health outcomes and things such as that. The methods that I used for my project, I mostly just did an online survey approach. I chose this approach because I thought if I asked open-ended questions, it would allow students or participants to lead the question how they wanted to take it, or tell their own story without any framing or guiding them in the way that I wanted them to go. I would have liked to do in-person interviews, but that was a little complicated due to COVID. Also, with people's schedules, the survey was pretty lengthy. It took about 30 to 45 minutes per person to approach, but I was able to get gift cards for participants for a raffle towards the end. So I decided to record my video in my room because this is where all the magic happens, where I do all my research, all my reading, looking things up. I utilize databases like through the college's online database, OneSearch, Wofford OneSearch. But primarily, I got a lot of my articles and things using JSTOR, using certain keywords like Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, hashtag activism, racial battle fatigue, just different things like that, and just trial and error with creating keywords that would hopefully bring me some results. So my findings thus far, pretty much I found that college students at Wofford, or Black college students at Wofford, do experience racial battle fatigue, that they are mentally and emotionally impacted by the events that unfolded this past summer and by their peers and the college's responses to those things. And not only do they feel impacted, but that these stressors outside of the classroom impact their performance and their ability to be successful college students on campus. So with this research, after I form my paper, hopefully I'll be able to present this and just get in the ear of people that can help provide resources, hopefully with better mental health approaches, with different coping mechanisms, or just ideas on how we can create a more inclusive and more welcoming campus for students so that these internalized feelings aren't so internalized, and that we can help African American and Black college students have the most successful academic careers that they can.